Boom, we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be. And of course, however you may be listening. I wanted to do a quick weekly rundown. There's not a ton of stuff going on this week in Iowa sports. So I wanted to discuss some of the recent commits. Of course, I'll be doing a full-blown official visit weekend preview, but I just kind of want to preliminarily discuss it. Talk about Iowa's recent wide receiver commit from Northwestern. I believe his name is Jacob Gill. He followed Brennan Sullivan, that is, from Northwestern to Iowa. And so we're just going to be delving into that. Like I said, looking at some of the commits that are already in the class and review where Iowa's current class stands. And they did receive a recent commit. And this one I actually am very pleased by. In the grand scheme of things, it may not end up meaning a whole lot because at the end of the day, at this particular position, there's only one person who can play or start. I mean, I guess depending on the team that you're on, sometimes they will play multiple players throughout a game. But if it's at Iowa, it's likely only going to be one guy. I want to ask you guys to consider smashing that subscribe button, like, comment, share. You guys know the drill. I appreciate all the support, positive or negative. I got to tell you guys, now that I've been doing this for a long time, there definitely are there definitely are uh some strange people out there in the world. And it is what it is. It's par for the course when you do a show like this. But as I've always told you guys, the difference between myself and the rest of the podcasts that are out there, or most of the podcasts that are out there, are two things. Number one, most of the and really these two things are tied together. But number one is that most of the podcasts have they are backed by a website, a news publication, or something like that, which brings me to the second point, which is most of them are not diehard Iowa Hawkeye fans since they were this tall. So for me, I'm coming at it from that perspective. And because I am not with a news organization, I can truly say exactly what I think, what I believe, and really hold nothing back. And, sometimes people enjoy that. Sometimes people don't. You guys would be surprised how often, especially when it comes to sports and a favorite team, you guys would be surprised just how often people really don't like full-blown honesty and transparency, especially if it pushes back against the narrative that they have begun to build up in their own mind. So, but I've told you guys that since day one. That is my thinking behind it. And it is not going to change. All right, guys, without further ado, let's get into this. So, Iowa, as I told you guys, received a commitment from, this was probably the biggest news, from former Northwestern head coach Pat Fitzgerald, his son, sorry guys, his son. And I believe he actually had another kid who was being recruited by Iowa. I could be wrong about that, who I believe also played the quarterback position. And I started to see this a couple of weeks ago when Iowa, uh, on some of the recruiting sites, it said that, obviously Iowa had offered a preferred walk-on position. And uh, I was really starting to see it pick up as this quarterback was saying, how much he was interested in the University of Iowa. And it's not really surprising because if you are a son of somebody who coached in the Big Ten, at least that you'd have respect for somebody like Kirk Ferentz. Kirk Ferentz is the coach's coach. You know how people say that so and so, like Dave Chappelle, is a comics comic or Jerry Seinfeld is a comics comic. Well, Kirk Ferentz is a coach's coach. You know, disciplined, uh, been doing it for a long time, does it his way, fundamental, the basics, all of that good stuff. So I started to see it picking up as he was saying that he respected the Iowa program so much, yada, yada, yada. But Iowa was unable to offer him a scholarship because they did already have a commitment from, and this was going back to when Brian Ferentz was still the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach at Iowa. Iowa received a commitment from this kid, Jimmy Sullivan, uh, quite a few months ago now. So they were unable to offer him a full scholarship. Instead, they were able to offer him a preferred walk-on position, which for Iowa has worked out really, really well in the past. Iowa has a proven track record of being fair and giving preferred walk-ons a legitimate opportunity to contribute to the University of Iowa. So, and then he commits to Iowa. Now, I want to say Thursday or Friday this happened. Let me tell you guys something. This is a huge get. If you take all of that into account, it's a huge get. And then let me show you guys. This kid is a high 3-star by all the recruiting services. Okay. And I'm telling you right now, had Iowa not had a commitment from Jimmy Sullivan, I am fairly certain that they would have offered him a scholarship, a full blown scholarship. But very, very surprising, just given the talent level that he has. I'm going to pull up his, and we're going to take a look at that here momentarily. But this class is really starting to take shape for the Iowa Hawkeyes. I'm really liking the class that they have thus far, and they still have a few targets. So this is, I told you guys on Facebook that I was going to start using On3 even more than I have already been using them. But as I think that they are going to be the best recruiting site moving forward. But this is the state of Illinois. And again, Iowa landing this guy is yet proof positive. And I always say this, that Iowa continues to recruit excellently in the state of Illinois. I mean, Illinois, honestly, you can make the case that Iowa does just as good, if not better at times, in the state of Illinois than they do in the state of Iowa. And they do good in Iowa, obviously. But the last, I would say, 5 years or so, it's kind of a back and forth between Iowa and Iowa State regarding who gets the lion's share of the in-state talent. I would say Iowa still wins more often than not, especially with the top tier talent in the state of Iowa. But uh, and that would especially be true had they been able to keep and hold on to the Caden Proctor, the big O tackle from Southeast Polk. But this, nonetheless, man, they really have been doing a great job in the state of Illinois. As you guys can see here, they have the number 3 player in the state, Carson Cooney, a grade of a 92, nearly a top 100 player. They're in excellent shape to land Iosi Epinesa, the younger brother of AJ Epinesa. They're in on 4-star wide receiver and are still predicted to land him, Terrence Smith, although I haven't really seen much on his recruitment of late. Haven't heard much about it. I don't think he has any official visits lined up yet, but hopefully Iowa will get an official visit from him. I don't think they have a ton of competition for him as he has not taken off nationally quite yet. His rating of a 91, if you were to look at his rating of a 91 and look at his offer sheet, you would see what I'm talking about. They have a commitment from near four-star linebacker Burke Goucher. I did a recruiting video on him. They have received an official visit from Brad Fitzgibbon, which I will circle back to. And then let's see if we can find. And then they recently received a commitment from safety Drew McPherson, who is a high school teammate of Pat Fitzgerald's son. So, really, really, really excellent news here. Let's see. Let's keep scrolling. He's somewhere in here. There he is. Ryan Fitzgerald. According to On3, he is the 15th best player in the state of Illinois. Okay. The state of Illinois each year produces minimum 20 Power 5 level recruits. Okay. So him being top 15 or top 20, well, top 15 really, according to On3, is really, really solid. 87, high 3-star, huge get at the preferred walk-on position. So that is that. Iowa received a commitment from him. Hopefully, they're able to hold on to that. We'll see if Northwestern or Illinois decides to come in late in the process. I don't think that that's likely, as Illinois already has a commitment from him from a quarterback. And you never know with Northwestern, although I think it's highly unlikely that he will go to Northwestern, considering what happened between his dad and Northwestern. So if I had to give it a likelihood of Iowa being able to keep a commitment from him, I put it at about 80%. Of course, you never know. Michigan or some other major Power 5 school could come in on him, but he does already have some decent offers, and he did spurn those offers for Iowa. So you guys can see here, 247 Sports gives him a grade of an 86. So he pretty much had offers from a group of 5 schools, but in my experience, looking at how the whole recruiting process goes, especially at the quarterback position, there are late risers, and you can never be surprised by a recruit, especially after their senior season, being given an onslaught of new suitors in on them late in the process. So let's take a look here at who Iowa has committed. Currently, they have the 35th best class according to On3, but On3 does it a little bit differently. I think they do an average of, like, at any given time, they do an average uh of like, so Iowa could have 20 players committed at this point, but not every school has that. So it's a weighted average. On3 usually does an average of like 10. They do somewhere in the middle of what most schools have as far as a commitment total at any given date in the recruiting cycle for a particular year. So as we can see here, guys, Iowa has the 35th best class according to On3. They have 4-star Thomas Meyer. We'll say Carson Cooney is considered a high 4-star by On3. So they have a really nice class thus far. There's definitely something that I've noticed about Iowa the last couple of years, which is Iowa tends to get more commits from like more suburban type schools, suburban type high schools. I mean, look at this, guys. I don't want to delve too much into this because I it is what it is, but uh, I'm just gonna scroll through all the photos of all the commitments that Iowa has here. It's something that I've noticed. I'm not saying it's good, it's bad. I'm not saying I'm just saying it is definitely something that I have noticed. Now, the Midwest definitely does have uh a a certain demographic, but so anyways, let's look at the official visit weekend here that Iowa has lined up. I think they have some really nice names. For example, AJ Epenesa's brother, Iose Epinesa. I think the thing that sucks about when he is going to visit is he's visiting on June 8th, which the biggest date that Iowa has every single year is the last weekend of June, which is June 21st. That's when they consistently do their official visit weekend. I've told you guys time and time again, it's there's pluses and minuses to when you do it. If you do it too early, yes, you get the first crack. But if you don't land them the first go around, the longer it gets from the time that they officially visited your school, the less and less likely it becomes that they're going to commit to you because you're becoming a distant memory and they're starting to suffer from recency bias with all the schools that they have most recently visited. If you do it too late in the process, you may not even get a chance at having them on campus or landing them at all. But what I always say with that is that if a recruit is unable to be patient and hold out until or getting excited enough about visiting your school in the first place, then it probably wouldn't have worked out anyways. So but nonetheless, they have him June 8th. I would have loved for him to have scheduled it for the big official visit weekend of June 21st so he could be around other Iowa Hawkeye commits and really feel the vibe of being an Iowa Hawkeye and see who his teammates are going to be and all of that good stuff. But nonetheless, I think Iowa will do a good job. They'll throw all the works at him. This is going to be a great official visit for him. The family connection is there. He's already been to Iowa. Iowa is the school that he is the most familiar with, that he has visited the most, both unofficially and officially, both as a spectator and as a recruit. If I had to guess, Iose Epinesa has probably been on Iowa's campus at least 20 times. Whether it be watching his brother, whether it be, well, actually, his middle brother is actually I think Eric Epinesa, who is currently a linebacker at Iowa, walk-on linebacker. So this kid is super familiar with the University of Iowa, and I think it'll be good regardless. Iowa did get an official visit from running back Kentrell Reinhardt. It looked like for a while that the top running back that Iowa was in on was Sean Simeon out of Naples, Florida, who, if you guys remember, Iowa did have a commitment from uh, a running back out of Naples, Florida, the same school that Sean Simeon is from, in Kendrick Raphael. Of course, he did ultimately decide to spurn Iowa as Iowa's offensive numbers and output continued to fall lower and lower and lower. Ultimately, though, I think it ended up just fine for Iowa as they landed two really solid running backs in Kamari Moulton and Terrell Washington Jr., who have both been early contributors for the Iowa Hawkeye football program. So, nonetheless, this is the running back currently the lone running back that Iowa has an official visit from. They do, we'll see if they end up getting an official visit from Sean Simeon. Usually, it is the case that Iowa really goes hard after only literally only one or two running backs and key in and put all of their efforts in on one running back at a time. So we'll see if their efforts pay off here with Kentrell Reinhardt. I think if you look at the competition that they're facing, I think it's definitely a winnable recruiting battle, and we will see. The big official visit weekend here. This is it. You got some big names, Nick Brooks. Unfortunately, Chris McCorkle, a four-star cornerback, already committed to Indiana. Um, you never know. He may still end up deciding to visit Iowa, but I doubt it. I do wish that he had waited, but nonetheless, he's committed to Indiana. Brock Heath, who hails from the same high school as Mason Richman, is going to officially visit Iowa. I think the major competition for his commitment is from Kansas State. Same with Lucas Algier, who is the son of a former Iowa Hawkeye as well. Same. Uh, he's an offensive tackle, 6'6", 260 pounds. Primary competition comes via Kansas State. Cameron Herron definitely has Iowa high on his list. He hails from Warren Central, which has been really good to Iowa in recent years. The actual on the field production of players from the state of Indiana has been hit or miss. But as far as Iowa landing players from the Indianapolis area, primarily the Warren Central schools or Lawrence Central and all those schools, has been fairly good. They are definitely very familiar with the area. It's kind of slowed down in the last year or two. But if they can land this guy, I think it would be a really nice get. He fits the mold of exactly what Iowa is looking for at the guard and interior offensive line positions. Let's see here. Josh Johnson, cornerback. Iowa still does not have any cornerback commits. Um, Brad Fitzgibbon, who his high school teammate from last year, John Nestor, is already at Iowa. Hopefully that will help the Iowa Hawkeyes land his commitment. Christian Hudson, who On3 considers a four-star. Looks like their primary competition is UCF. Iowa is really going hard in the state of Florida, and I told you guys that this would happen with the addition of Liddell Betts and the current tight end coach as well. They both have major familiarity with the state of Florida. And I'm really hoping that we see it pay dividends. And I think it already has. I think Iowa already has done much better in the state of Florida. And hopefully that only improves as time goes by. Abdul Hodge is, of course, who I am talking about. And, it really doesn't get much better than those two guys that came to Iowa and have both been uber successful. They can absolutely provide a anecdotal experience on top of the more logical, more kind of academic case for why a recruit should pick Iowa. Mason Ellens, I think Iowa is in excellent position for him. He's a cornerback, high three-star out of the state of Illinois. Yet another state of Illinois recruit that Iowa is in on. I mean, this might go down as Iowa's best year recruiting the state of Illinois in a long, long time. And I was really starting to get worried about that with the addition of Illinois and their new coach, Brett Bielema. I thought that they were going to start kind of overtaking the recruits that Iowa could land. Northwestern, for a time, seemed like they were doing much better in the state of Illinois and recruiting as a whole, with a couple of Big Ten championship game appearances. But of course, they did have the drama and scandal at their school. So Iowa is in as good of a position as they ever have been recruiting that state. And then, of course, wide receiver Braylon Collier is a wide receiver that Iowa is in on. Now, you know, the bottom line is, so this is the last thing that I want to discuss is the wide receiver position. So the bottom line is, guys, that so Iowa, I told you guys I was going to talk about the recent wide receiver that Iowa landed from Northwestern. I think he has 2 or 3 years of eligibility left. Jacob Gill, I believe his name is. You know, I obviously it's not the worst pickup. He immediately adds speed. He adds a veteran mindset to the Iowa Hawkeyes. He's obviously a smart kid if he's able to have the grades to go to Northwestern. But from a purely just kind of tactful viewpoint of what Iowa needs and what they don't have, he does not necessarily fit that. He fits it from the standpoint of Iowa needing playmakers and speed. You can never have too much speed on your roster, especially at the wide receiver position. But Iowa really does need bigger bodied wide receivers. Now, I don't know if maybe Tim Lester's offense is going to start using tight ends in a far more athletic, more tight end slash wide receiver role, more modern role, which is certainly possible. I mean, the way that Iowa develops tight ends, they absolutely could do that. We have already seen them do that. Now, I would say under Brian Ferentz, it was far more traditional, but maybe that is where they go to for their more possession, more bigger bodied targets that their roster desperately needs. And including the high school ranks, I don't really see anybody that Iowa is currently in on that fits the build of a bigger bodied wide receiver. So, we'll see. There's still a lot of time in the process, and there will continue to be more and more talent that unveils itself for the Iowa Hawkeyes. But they could, especially with Jacob Bostic deciding to transfer, which I haven't seen if he has committed elsewhere yet. Let's take a look. There you guys have it. He committed to Texas A&M, and I believe I can almost guarantee that he did have a legitimate scholarship offer. Now, Texas A&M is not currently what it has been in the past, but this is still eye-opening how many schools were in on Jacob Bostic. I mean, this kid really did have offers from a lot of major programs, especially considering like he wasn't a 4-star recruit. I mean, he definitely had suitors coming out of high school and was not by any means an under recruited recruit. But it wasn't like he was a Caden Proctor either. Um, and especially considering that I'm just looking at some of these. I don't know who I mean, Jacob Bostic has retweeted like all of these. Especially considering that Jacob Bostic had zero production at Iowa. And I'm not saying that that is necessarily his fault per se, because obviously Brian Ferentz's offense was brutal and certainly not the best. But it's just from a purely recruiting standpoint, to me, it was kind of surprising that he had so many recruits or so many offers um, that 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 were interested in him. So good luck to him. I wish him the best. But like I said, I think that this is yet another example of what I always tell you guys, which is Iowa does have talent at the wide receiver position. Those you guys who think that they don't are lying to yourselves, and you're lying to yourselves in order to cope and tell yourselves that Iowa is bad because of the players, not the coaching. And I'm telling you, recruiting is not the reason why Iowa is not good. Surprisingly, it is not the reason that Iowa is not good or has not been good on offense. Um, so we'll see. Let's take a look before we get out of here. I want to take a look. By the way, Jacob Gill, the Northwestern transfer, I think is a has a grade of an 83 by On3 recruiting services, which is not that bad, not great, but not that bad. Um, let's see here. You know what, guys? I take that back. Iowa, like I already talked about him, Terrence Smith. He is 6'3", according to 247 Sports. High 3 star. He's considered a 4 star by On3. So that's if they do land him, that will be their big bodied wide receiver that I have been discussing. They are, recruiting Braden Timble. I think Illinois is probably their biggest competition there. And there's some other wide receivers that they are going after. Chase Collier. Wow, they have two Colliers here. Braylon Collier from Sandusky, Ohio, and Chase Collier out of the Boyles School, Jacksonville, Florida. So, but really the only big-bodied wide receiver would be Braden Trimble and Terrence Smith. So let me see if I can get pulled up Jacob Gill's recruiting profile before I end this video here. This is Jacob Bostic's recruiting profile as a transfer portal target. Basically, a mid 3 star, 86, 5.5, according to Rivals. So there you guys go with that. He did, like I said, end up committing to Texas A&M, and obviously we wish him the best. I So here is Jacob Gill. I wish it had worked out for Jacob Bostic. I really do. I was highly optimistic about him, and everything I have said has been positive. I thought he had all the right traits, the frame, the build, the athleticism, but it didn't work out, and he did not see enough from Tim Lester or wasn't seeing enough snaps, whatever the case may be. He was ready to move on from Iowa, and who knows, maybe he was buried and really was not doing that well. It's just from everything we had heard from the previous year, for as young of a prospect as he was making pretty solid progress. So, nonetheless, it didn't work out. On3 has Jacob Gill as an 83, so pretty close to what they have Jacob Bostic graded. That is going to do it for me, guys. That's pretty much it. No major news. Caitlin Clark continues her WNBA stint. Um, and it's having some mixed results. I told you guys that she was going to have a tough go of it. From the moment I did my first couple of videos regarding her, the WNBA is its own unique situation with its own culture, its own mindset. And I got to tell you, Caitlin Clark does not fit that culture. And I knew that from the moment she started playing in the WNBA, she was going to have pushback. And that has absolutely been the case. I told you guys that if I was Caitlin Clark, I would have considered coming back to Iowa with a massive NIL deal. And then as soon as I had exhausted my final year of eligibility, I would have either went pro overseas in Europe or I would have retired altogether. But that's just me. So, um, so she's having a mixed bag, but especially with the on the court stuff, I think it's been overall pretty good considering she's a rookie. But there's been things that her coaches have said. There's been pushback from the media. I mean, every which way you slice it, it's been a roller coaster, and that's bound to be the case considering how wildly popular she is as a sports entertainers. So we will see how that goes. If there's any major news there, I will definitely discuss it with you guys. Um, I just wanted to see really quickly, and 247 Sports has Iowa currently rated as the 38th overall class. I think that's mostly due to uh, that's their overall rank. I think that's mostly due to Iowa not, at this stage in the game, there's schools that are going to have 20 commits, and this is why On3 kind of has a weighted ranking system. And there's some schools that only have 8 or 9. So, really the only time to really see what the class is after the major spring official visit weekends, a couple of weeks after that, and of course when it's all said and done. So, but nonetheless, it's 38th. I think as long as Iowa can have a top 35 class, which this is certainly possible given the commits that they already have. I think there's a few recruits that are definitely capable of having major recruiting ranking bumps. So we'll see. But I just wanted to see really quickly Jacob Bostic when he was coming out of high school. So it was either 2023 or 2022. I think it was 2023. No, wow, it was 2022. That's right. Wow, so he was supposed to be a redshirt sophomore this year. So he had redshirted, and then last year was his redshirt freshman year. This would have been his redshirt sophomore year. Wow. As you guys can see, I mean, Iowa usually does what's considered good for Iowa or average to good is a top 40 class ranking. It's really hard to judge the recruiting rankings nowadays because they add in the transfer portal rankings, but not all transfer portal ratings are there. Not all the prospects are rated like they are coming out of high school. So it's just not as broad of a industry yet. So it's really hard to gauge. Plus, there's pure 247 sports or pure On3 ratings, and then there's the composite ratings, which does all of them together. So, it's kind of hard to get past the weeds and all the nuances of the recruiting rankings. But I think somewhere between you know 25 to 40 is about average. If we go back to 2021, so this is Jacob Bostic's class. He was at 87, and he, as you guys can see, one of the better recruits in this class, top half. Uh, this class had a high school rating of a 30. Xavier Wanpa was the major headliner of that class. Let's go back to 2021. I always like to take a trip down memory lane. Yeah, because Xavier Wanpa did not redshirt, and he's going into his junior season. So 2021, they had the 12th best class coming out of high school, for just high school recruits. 2022 was 30th. 2023, 41st. And a large reason why it was 41st is because Caden Proctor transferred. And Iowa had obviously devoted a ton of resources to landing Caden Proctor. And when he spurned Iowa, they did not have really a second option besides the transfer portal. So 41st, and then 2024, they were 32nd. They had a really nice class last year. I think that this class this year can be around what last year's class was, which is 32nd. And this is why I always tell you guys, you can't overthink you can't overthink or overanalyze the recruiting rankings at this stage in the game. Is there a certain amount of accuracy to it? Of course. But there are things that will change. by the end of the year. Hell, it'll change in a couple months from now when a new batch of recruiting rankings happens, when more commits happen. So, just off of my experience, where Iowa's class currently is, I think it's reasonable to think that Iowa can be somewhere between last year's class and the class before it, which was 41st or 40th. I think it was 41st. So, anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. This is my weekly Hawkeye roundup, a little bit of recruiting talk. Hope you guys enjoyed the update. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow. Facts or feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. Love you guys. See you guys next time. Go Hawks. Bye-bye.